Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to welcome you to this year's Romanes lecture. We are honoured that our lecture this evening will be given by a truly exceptional speaker, the Right Honourable Patricia Scotland QC, about whom you'll hear more in a moment. The Romanes Lectures is the university's most distinguished annual public lecture. It was founded in 1891 by John Romanes, a Canadian English evolutionary biologist and physiologist, and the youngest of Charles Darwin's academic friends. Romanes, among other contributions to the study of evolution, coined the term neo-Darwinism. Although he studied at Cambridge, he and his family settled here in Oxford to our lasting benefit. The inaugural lecture was given by one of my favourite 19th century statesmen, the inimitable William Gladstone. Following in his footsteps have been generations of exceptional women and men, from Isaiah Berlin to Winston Churchill, from Iris Murdoch to Rowan Williams, and Amartya Sen to Lady Violet Bonham Carter, who was, I think, the first woman to deliver the lecture. She spoke on the impact of personality on politics. And earlier this evening, we established that Baroness Scotland is not only the 6th Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, but also the 6th female to give a Romanes lecture. Now, the list of lecture titles over the years gives a fascinating insight into the concerns of the day. In 1913, Sir W.M. Ramsay wrote on the imperial peace, an ideal pervading European history. In 1950, Sir John Cockcroft wrote of the development and the future of nuclear energy. And in 1997, Mary Robinson, with characteristic energy, chose as her title, Realizing Human Rights, Take Hold of Them Boldly. Now, tonight's lecture, with its focus on the distinctive contribution that the Commonwealth makes to such areas as climate change, countering violent extremism, eliminating violence against women and girls, the Romanes lectures continue in this long tradition of speaking to important contemporary issues. Patricia Scotland was born in Dominica to a Dominican mother and an Antiguan father. She moved to the UK at an early age and was brought up in a large, close-knit Caribbean family where she learned the importance of hard work, education, and pride in her heritage, as well as an obligation to give back both to the region of her birth and to the society in which she was raised. These early lessons have guided her throughout her career in law, public service, and politics. A lawyer by profession, Patricia Scotland became the first Black and youngest woman ever to be appointed a Queen's Counsel. She was the first Black woman to be appointed Deputy High Court Judge, Recorder, Master of Middle Temple, and the only woman, since the post was created in 1315, to be Attorney General for England and Wales. As a UK government minister, she undertook major reforms of the criminal justice system, including the introduction of the Domestic Violence Crime and Victims Act. During her term of office from 2003 to 2007, crime in England and Wales was reduced to its lowest level since 1981. At the same time, she also chaired the Interministerial Group on Domestic Violence, which worked to reduce domestic violence by 64%, and led to £7.5 billion reduction in the economic cost of domestic violence in England and Wales. The non-economic benefits, of course, are incalculable. In 2011, Patricia Scotland returned to private practice and continued to share her expertise on constitutional, civil, and criminal justice reform, human rights, public and family law, gender equality, diversity, and corporate social responsibility. She has undertaken pro bono projects in a number of legal and social areas and has been instrumental in setting up several foundations and non-governmental organisations aimed at advancing human rights, the welfare of young people, and the protection of girls and women from violence. On April 1st this year, she took office as Secretary-General of the Commonwealth of Nations. She is, of course, the first woman to hold the post of Secretary-General. Patricia Scotland's remarkable personal and professional achievements bear witness to exceptional talent and commitment to public service. It really is both a pleasure and an honour for me to say, please join me in welcoming Baroness Scotland to speak to us on the Commonwealth of Nations.
Well, Vice-Chancellor, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests and Commonwealth friends, I really am deeply conscious of what a great honour it is to address you this evening and to follow so distinguished a list of a line of the Romanes lectures. As someone who didn't have the privilege of coming to this university, you can imagine my delight. It's also a privilege to be addressing you as Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, the 6th Secretary-General of the Commonwealth. Just over a year ago, at their summit in Malta, Commonwealth heads of government entrusted to me the responsibility of serving collectively the governments and peoples of 52 independent sovereign member countries. The Commonwealth is the home to 2.4 billion people. This means that a third of the world's population are Commonwealth citizens, of whom 60% are under the age of 30. And these young people are growing up and setting out on their careers at a time when we face some very daunting global challenges. These are not merely a future possibility, they are a very present reality. At the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta last year, our leaders identified the major threats we face and the challenges on which we really need to work together. Many of these issues are interrelated. They also affect disproportionately people living on the margins or in disadvantaged communities. And I want to examine with you tonight, if I may, why it is that the Commonwealth is so well placed to tackle these challenges and to bring hope for the future. And I'll begin by examining some of the distinctive characteristics of the Commonwealth that set it apart as an enduring yet continually evolving and developing family. Bound together as such and as much by interconnecting networks linking its people, civil society, organisations and educational institutions as by governments, the Commonwealth brings soul to international affairs. And I like to think of it as a goodwill of nations, the special place it holds in the hearts of its citizens brings its strength. A sense of continuity and building on the best of what we hold in common enables it to flourish as a powerful influence for good in this changing and ever more turbulent world. So as we move towards the end of this year, during which we have been celebrating the 90th birthday of Her Majesty the Queen, I think it's fitting to pay fulsome and truly heartfelt tribute to her immense personal contribution to the Commonwealth, continuity and building it up as a global power and instrument for good. She really does embody both the Commonwealth's historical roots and its flowering. As Her Majesty observed during her Silver Jubilee in 1977, her role as head of the Commonwealth represents, and I quote, "the transformation of the crown from an emblem of dominion into a symbol of free and voluntary association. In all history, this has no precedent." It is a truly remarkable record that so diverse a family of nations steadily growing in scope and stature, should for 65 years have had one person, one woman, as the emblem of its unity. And by bringing a sense of human recognition and family to our richly diverse Commonwealth, the Queen has encouraged us to embrace positive change and fresh thinking, and to build together for the future. She has offered wise counsel and a sympathetic ear to generations of Commonwealth leaders. Her Majesty has given unwavering dedication to the values and goals of the Commonwealth and to all that it represents. Early in her reign, and having in 1952, at the age of only 25, succeeded her much-loved father, King George VI, as head of the Commonwealth, Her Majesty said of the Commonwealth the following: "It is an entirely new conception, built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man, friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace. It is on that new conception and on those highest qualities of friendship, loyalty, freedom, and peace that I want to dwell this evening. In considering these qualities and the nature of the Commonwealth, it is striking to see the extent to which its development as a concept and in terms of scope and membership has tended to be gradual, responding to alterations in circumstances and changing needs, mimicking the evolution and adaptation of the natural world. This means that our relationships do not have the feel of an artificial construct, but rather a natural growth and symbiotic development. The first Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, Arnold Smith, a Canadian, said, "The Commonwealth is a living organism, not a political blueprint. It has developed over the years, not according to any written constitution or central plan, but as a product of a long series of courageous and sometimes very difficult decisions on immediate and practical issues by statesmen from many parts of the world. Distinctly human in manifestation and expression, built largely on personal encounters and links, the Commonwealth connection can be seen, I believe, as a family tree writ large, with roots going deep and branches spreading wide. It's a setting with which I feel particularly comfortable as 10th in a family of 12 children. My parents always said they had only one of each of us, so we were each only children. And I was just their 10th only child. My family has a vast extended network of uncles and aunts, nephews and nieces, and countless cousins at various removes. So I am a classic child of the Commonwealth, born in the Caribbean. As you've heard, my mother from Dominica, my father from Antigua, but I have African, Scottish, First Nation, Caribbean, and French inheritances. And I moved to the United Kingdom as a child and have friends and family in many of the 52 countries of the Commonwealth. So bringing together people from nations and territories in every continent and ocean who cherish within the rich diversity of our membership a sense of belonging and of kinship and affinity The people of our Commonwealth family find mutual support and benefit as we live, learn, work, and much more interestingly, play together. And I often drive through the magnificent Commonwealth Memorial Gates at the top of Constitution Hill near Hyde Park in London. It was the brainchild of a great daughter of India, Baroness Srila Flather. Indeed, as a Millennium Commissioner, I was involved in the decisions to fund this overdue tribute to the men and women of the Commonwealth who gave their lives in the global conflicts of the last century. And Srila's monumental gates now stand as testimony to the sacrifice and comradeship of our Commonwealth family and the trials and tribulations that forged new awareness of our togetherness and of nationhood and national identity. Carved into the stone of the Commonwealth gates, our individual and collective memories and our shared commitment are drawn together in the marvelously simple yet deeply inspiring words of Ben Okri, the Nigerian poet. Simply says, "Our future is greater than our past." And in the Commonwealth, we seek to build in positive ways on what is good in our shared traditions and heritage, and on our common aspirations for a safer and fairer future for all. The common language, shared language, common law, and the similar systems of governance and administration give us a truly remarkable advantage when we work together towards the collective goals of the Commonwealth Charter. This evening, I want to consider with you the value of the Commonwealth networks, drawing together, as they do, such marvelously diverse arrays of talent and potential at multiple levels. Indeed, the Commonwealth is often characterized as a network of networks. Its distinctive feature as a family of nations is the range of organizations that link and serve our people. This brings depth and strength to the worldwide connections of citizens in our member states, and that is what we mean by an inclusive Commonwealth, our 2016 Commonwealth theme. The immense good that is achieved through cooperation between governments, ministerial meetings, the official dialogue, is immeasurably enhanced by the vigour and dedication of the Commonwealth civil society organisations, professional bodies, and other groups. And these networks bring together and allow for cooperation between an amazingly diverse, yet closely interrelated constellation of people, institutions, communities, and nations. First, perhaps, we need to look at the origins and development of the Commonwealth over the past 130 years or so, from 1884 to the present day. The halfway point in that timeline, 1949, is a point of inflection, marking a decisive change in understanding of what the relationship between Commonwealth members should be. It was Lord Rosebery, speaking in Adelaide in 1884, 10 years before he became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who first used the term Commonwealth of Nations to refer to what until then had been known only as the British Empire. And by the time of the Balfour Declaration in 1926, the British Commonwealth of Nations clearly referred to the unique relationship between the United Kingdom and the Dominions. Coming together freely, as equal members, they were united by common allegiance to the Crown. And in the late 1940s, India, Pakistan, and Ceylon achieved independence. And the decision of India to become a republic and its desire to remain within the Commonwealth offered the opportunity for innovative development and progress. So by creating the role of the head of the Commonwealth, the London Declaration of 1949 revealed the continuing strength and adaptability of the ever-evolving family of nations. It also opened up a new chapter of opportunity for equal and voluntary association and cooperation amongst sovereign countries with diverse yet related models of governance and administration as a true Commonwealth of Nations. And I feel sure that the achievement of her late father, King George VI, and of the Commonwealth statesmen, such as the Prime Ministers of Canada and India, so Louis Saint-Laurent and Jawaharlal Nehru, is what was in the mind of Her Majesty only 3 years later when she spoke of the Commonwealth as an entirely new conception. And it's striking and yet typical of the way the Commonwealth works that the principal architects of this model and of the London Declaration should have been a French-Canadian and the paramount leader of the Indian independence movement. Indeed, as a far-sighted statesman who saw beyond his time, Nehru declared that the Commonwealth brings a touch of healing. From 1944, a pattern of biennial conferences of Commonwealth Prime Ministers had been established, and it was at the 1964 meeting in London that the decision was made to create the role of the Commonwealth Secretary-General and a secretariat to serve as a visible symbol of the spirit of cooperation which animates the Commonwealth. In a visionary, and I think pioneering move, first suggested by President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, the Commonwealth Foundation was established alongside the Secretariat to encourage the growth of Commonwealth-wide professional associations and to nurture and encourage links between the people of the member countries and deepen the distinctive character of the Commonwealth as an association of peoples as much as of governments. And the Commonwealth family expanded steadily during the 1960s and the 1970s as new members joined on becoming independent and sovereign nations. And this led to the biennial meeting of the Commonwealth Prime Ministers meeting. The Commonwealth became the conscience. Meeting ministers, assuming a new form and becoming the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And the inaugural CHOGM, as it became known, took place in 1971 and was hosted by Singapore, with its then Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, as the very distinguished first chair. And that first CHOGM led to the Singapore Declaration, which set out the Commonwealth's core beliefs: rejection of racism and discrimination, liberty, egalitarianism, the eradication of poverty, free trade, institutional cooperation, multilateralism, world peace, and the support for the United Nations. South Africa had withdrawn from the Commonwealth in 1961. And during the dark years of the fight against the evil of apartheid and for the majority rule, the Commonwealth became the conscience of the international community. And I have to say, that was the time when I became truly in love with the Commonwealth. The 1979 CHOGM, held in Zambia, chaired by the President Kenneth Kaunda, issued a renewed condemnation of apartheid. The Lusaka Declaration of the Commonwealth on Racism and Racial Prejudice. Commonwealth countries provided money and support for the liberation struggle and collectively spearheaded international action against the apartheid regime. At the Bahamas CHOGM in 1985, the Nassau Accord was agreed and called on the government of South Africa to dismantle its apartheid policy, to enter into negotiations with the country's black majority, and to end its occupation of Namibia. A Commonwealth Eminent Persons Group was appointed to investigate the issues involved and to report back with recommendations to a special CHOGM in London the following year. And co-chaired by Azerbaijan, terrible when you get tired, Obasanjo, former president of Nigeria, and Malcolm Fraser, who was the former Prime Minister of Australia, the group famously visited President Botha and then Nelson Mandela, who was still in detention on Robben Island. And the Commonwealth increased the pressure for Mandela's release and for the internal negotiations, which led to the first ever multi-racial elections in April 1994. And few of us will ever forget that moment. Now, those elections witnessed the largest ever Commonwealth Observer Group under the leadership of Michael Manley of Jamaica. And the new engagement with the Commonwealth was immediate. President Mandela's first visit outside the country was to London, where he led the return of South Africa to the Commonwealth. And during that visit, he famously announced, "The Commonwealth makes the world safe for diversity." Safe for diversity. And having helped it win its political freedom, the Commonwealth chaired the international community's donor committee on reconstructing South Africa, laying the foundation for economic liberation. And in 1991, CHOGM was hosted by Zimbabwe. And it is a sad irony, given subsequent developments, that in mapping out a course towards a new millennium, it was the Harare Declaration that strengthened Commonwealth emphasis on democracy, human rights, and equality. In 2009, 60 years on from the London Declaration, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting was hosted and chaired by Trinidad and Tobago. A principal outcome of that meeting in Port of Spain was the affirmation of Commonwealth values and principles with commitment to collective respect for international peace and security, democracy, human rights, tolerance, respect and understanding, separation of powers, rule of law, freedom of expression, development, gender equality, access to health and education, good governance, and civil society. That 2009 CHOGM also led to the commissioning by my predecessor as Secretary General of an eminent persons group to undertake the examination of options for reform in order to bring the Commonwealth's many institutions into a stronger and more effective framework of cooperation and partnership. One of the most significant recommendations made by the group was that there should be a charter of the Commonwealth. So following extensive national consultation in member states and with civil society, the Charter of the Commonwealth was adopted by heads of government in December 2012 and signed by Her Majesty the Queen, head of the Commonwealth, at Marlborough House in March 2013. And the Charter is now the defining document of the Commonwealth and sets out the core values and principles to which all our member states voluntarily commit themselves. And significantly, although it was ratified by the heads of government, the opening words of the Charter are extraordinarily important because they are these: we, the people of the Commonwealth. And this makes clear, once again, the distinctively personal rather than institutional way in which Commonwealth connection and impact are experienced and made manifest. The 16 articles of the Charter, ranging from democracy through tolerance, respect and understanding of gender equality and young people, prefigure the 17 goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, whereby we seek to achieve 3 extraordinary things in the next 15 years. End extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, fix climate change. Not much to do there then. Now, these goals, adopted a year ago, match the ambitions of our Commonwealth Charter, and our 52 countries collectively are committed to working on them together in a spirit of goodwill and mutual support. The difference between the 16 Commonwealth Charter headings and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is because the latter treats partnership separately, whereas we regard it as an overarching and integral to each of our ambitions, as the basis of the Commonwealth connection at multiple levels and the animating principle of all that we do and aspire to. Partnership is fully covered in the preamble of the Commonwealth Charter and inspires our approaches to every one of its 16 articles. So partnership is one of the 5 Ps that encompass all that we seek to achieve in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and all that we work for as the Commonwealth family. So the 5 Ps, and I'm sure all of you are only too familiar with them, so if you know them, please feel free to say them with me, are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. And these also encompass my personal vision for the Commonwealth. And so let me say something now about each of them. Under the heading People, I see respect for human dignity as paramount. That is why I have set eliminating violence against women and girls as both a personal and a Commonwealth priority. Violence against women and girls is disturbingly persistent and pervasive worldwide. Domestic violence, being just one form of violence against women and girls, affects 1 in 3 women right the way across the world. And it's the greatest cause of morbidity in women and girls. Therefore, it kills and injures more women and girls than anything else. More than road traffic, more than malaria, more than anything else you can think of. And even though most of our Commonwealth member states have laws designed specifically to protect the rights of women who are assaulted or abused, implementation of such legislation can prove remarkably difficult. And that's why practical Commonwealth tools, such as judicial bench books to guide those responsible for upholding the laws that protect women against violence, are really so very, very important and are valued so highly by legal practitioners and human rights defenders in all our member states. And we are living through times in which an unprecedented number of women are moving into the highest offices in politics, business, and civil society, and of course, academia, Vice-Chancellor. And as our Commonwealth Charter makes clear, justice demands that women have the right to equality in all areas. And this must be embedded within legal systems, upheld in both law and practice, and realized at every level of economic and political activity. Advancing women's political participation and leadership and economic empowerment are critical building blocks for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Another priority under the heading People is youth. It is in youth that we step through the gateway of promise and set out along the road of fulfillment. The young people of the Commonwealth are leading us to a future of ever greater aspiration and even greater achievement. We recently launched the 2016 report of our Commonwealth Global Youth Development Index, and this project continues our long-established Commonwealth record of pioneering in practical action on youth development. And the YDI brings together vital data on young people for analysis and to guide policies and projects for youth development. And it aims to inform policymakers and raise awareness about the key opportunities and barriers to improving youth development around the world. And the YDI also lays down a challenge. Without action to promote young people's empowerment, boosting opportunities for employment and opening up spaces for political dialogue and civic participation, countries will be squandering their most precious resource. So our goal through the Commonwealth Youth Programme is to include young people and to enhance their opportunities for fulfillment through employment, through enterprise, and through deeper and more meaningful involvement in all aspects of national and community life. And it's engagement with and by young people, by the youth, that brings vibrancy and vitality to Commonwealth connections. Now, with over 60% of the population of the Commonwealth aged under 30, and in some countries over 70%, almost every sustainable development goal is relevant to young people, both as beneficiaries and as agents of change. So involving young people in shaping the world and its systems and investing in their development is critical to achieving the global goals, as well as measuring up to our shared Commonwealth values and principles. And the global youth population is at an all-time high of 1.8 billion. and 640 million of them live, learn, work, and play in Commonwealth countries. However, when I say work, we need to be mindful that Commonwealth countries have higher youth unemployment rates than the global average. Economic empowerment and positive engagement of young people, especially those facing complex and multiple disadvantages, benefits individuals and the societies and countries in which they live. They are our real gold. So such empowerment and engagement are critical to the well-being of young people and their ability to contribute to democracy and development. And the more skilled young people are, and the more they're involved in planning and working for the future of our societies at every level, the more opportunities and freedom they will have to fulfill their aspirations and talents. And without the active support of our youth leaders, attainment of our development objectives is impossible. So encouragingly, youth development is not heavily dependent on income per capita. So this means that low-income countries can make significant advances by providing young people with opportunities to seek quality education and training and to participate in social, political, and economic life of their localities and their nations. And Commonwealth member states, collectively and individually, have a fine track record of leading international action and of pressing for global responses to the calamity of youth unemployment. And we're going to be right there along beside them. Now, under the heading of planet, there can be no doubt at all that that is tackling climate change. And that has to be our focus. And the impact of climate change has been high on our agenda for 30 years. As long ago as 1989, when CHOGM was hosted by Malaysia, the Langkawi Declaration on the Environment committed the Commonwealth to an active role in protecting natural balances and preventing environmental deterioration. And it stated this, and think about it, it's 30 years ago almost. We, the heads of government of the Commonwealth, representing a quarter of the world's population and a broad cross-section of global interests, are deeply concerned at the serious deterioration in the environment and the threat this poses to the well-being of present and future generations. Any delay in taking action to halt this progressive deterioration will result in permanent and irreversible damage. Now, this long-standing focus bore fruit, as many of you know, a year ago, when our biennial Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting assembled in Malta. Days before COP21, our member states, in their rich diversity, agreed to set ambition high and pave the way for the Paris Agreement, a practical and distinctively Commonwealth contribution is the technical support being offered by our Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub. Despite global commitments to $100 billion a year being made available for climate change mitigation and adaptation by 2020, only 726 million of the available finance has so far been received by our Commonwealth small states. And the Commonwealth Hub, hosted by the Government of Mauritius, now provides guidance and support to help ensure that our members' countries are able to access the resources they need. And our Commonwealth priority in tackling climate change is to move from agreement to action. Among our members, there are small islands threatened by rising sea levels and larger states vulnerable to flooding or desertification. And you'll know that of the 52 nation states, 30 are small countries. And 2 months ago, we convened a groundbreaking and dynamic 2-day workshop at Marlborough House, our Commonwealth headquarters in London, looking at the possibilities and the potential for regenerative development to reverse climate change. And the Commonwealth has long been a pioneer of innovative thinking and conjoined action on the existential threat posed to so many of our communities, and in some cases, entire member states, by destructive human impact on the delicate balance of the life on this planet. So new approaches, such as biomimicry, permaculture, circular and symbiotic economies. We've now copying the R&D of nature. We've got concrete, carbon-eating concrete, and cooling systems structured in similar ways to termite mounds. And so we're looking, learning, creating, and all of this has been made possible by the new science, the new technology, and just as importantly, the changed attitudes, which now offer the possibility for reversal of that damage. And I find it very, very exciting that we, as the Commonwealth, can offer leadership in adopting and implementing those new technologies. And I was able to convey this innovative thinking as another pioneering Commonwealth contribution when I addressed the high-level segment of COP22 in Marrakesh just 3 weeks ago. And it is through such approaches, I believe, that as on so many occasions in the past, the potential of our Commonwealth networks and meetings will be mobilized to lay the foundations on which progressive global consensus can be built to create a safer and more sustainable future for all. So now let's move to prosperity. When I was appointed by heads of government at their meeting in Malta last November, I said that I wanted to put the wealth back into Commonwealth. And I wanted to put the common back into wealth. And in saying that, I was simply articulating the essence of what motivates us as a family and what has, for more than 60 years, guided us along shared pathways towards good governance, sustainable growth, and inclusive social and economic development. Because true wealth is more than just money. It demands real investment in the social capital of our member states. And we have one very important asset, which is ours and ours alone, and we call it the Commonwealth advantage. The recent Commonwealth Trade Review, an excellent study full of fascinating data, shows that there is a measurable advantage in intra-Commonwealth trade, which has never been more needed than it is today. Fraud and corruption, potentially, destroy that Commonwealth advantage and the benefits of having similar institutions. So we must use our innate sense of kinship and affinity and the common law to leverage real change in the Commonwealth. And we are well placed and have connections and mechanisms that can help us to devise shared approaches to the challenges we jointly face. Exchange of ideas, as well as trade, are the lifeblood of Commonwealth connection. They bring employment and help to share the social and economic benefits of growth and prosperity more equitably among citizens and communities in all our member states. And as Secretary General of the Commonwealth and as a proud daughter of the Caribbean, I take as one of my guiding texts the words of the great St. Lucian economist and Nobel laureate, Sir Arthur Lewis. And he said this: "The fundamental cure for poverty is not money, but knowledge." Knowledge. And I am committed to championing all those who work to liberalize and increase trade in order to drive sustainable and inclusive economic and social development. And the Commonwealth offers unrivaled networks through which to expand trade and investment among our member states. And Commonwealth Secretariat research and analysis shows that when both bilateral partners are Commonwealth members, they tend to trade 20% more and generate 10% more foreign direct investment inflows that would otherwise be the case. And so this potent Commonwealth effect implies bilateral trade costs between Commonwealth partners are on average 19% lower compared with those of other country pairs. So it's good business sense to make the most of this unique asset for the greater good of all our citizens. So trade among Commonwealth countries has risen from about $200 billion in the year 2000 to more than $600 billion today. And by 2020, we estimate it will be worth about $1 trillion. So the economic links between our nations are growing, and some would say exponentially. So this offers huge opportunity over coming years to make even more Commonwealth's trade advantage and to extend it from the 19% we have now to perhaps, 30% or beyond. To do so, we really will need to enhance and share best commercial and regulatory practice within similar statutory frameworks across the Commonwealth so that we can make it even easier and better and faster and cheaper for Commonwealth members to trade one with the other. And next year, the United Kingdom will host the Commonwealth Trade Ministers meeting, followed by the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in 2018. And so these are pivotal meetings in terms of opening up new commercial, economic, and other opportunities for all Commonwealth member countries. So we've dealt with people, we've dealt with prosperity. What about peace? And our theme next year is going to be a peace-building Commonwealth. The changing nature of violence in today's world is alarming, and it affects us all. Building peace requires patience, perseverance, and determination to work for the good in a spirit of respect and understanding. And these are all Commonwealth strengths. And our collective approach is undergirded by the splendid work of the Commonwealth Commission on Respect and Understanding. The Commission was chaired by Amartya Sen, someone who has given this lecture himself before, and its report, Civil Paths to Peace, which was issued in 2006. It brings distinctive Commonwealth insights and perspectives to this pressing area of concern. And among these is our understanding that it is by building on our multiple identities and by finding what we hold in common, rather than how we are different, that inclusive progress is made towards sustainable peace. And in this context, acting early to prevent violent extremism has to be one of our top priorities. And there can be no greater responsibility than ensuring the safety and security of our citizens. And I believe this starts with women and children, which means we need to start in the home and in our schools. Because if there is no peace in our home, I believe there cannot be peace in our world. Education about the other, teaching that difference is something to celebrate and not to fear, needs to start in our primary schools. The Commonwealth has for decades supported youth-led organisations and networks to give young people a voice, as I've already set out. And this has included the pioneering development of our youth workers and youth work as a profession. But we need to guide our young people towards positive involvement with their peers and with wider society as nation builders. And such interventions enable young people to address social exclusion, ethnic or religious prejudice, and politically motivated violence at grassroots, where they can be potent catalysts for inclusion and help to avert alienation. We are currently establishing a new dedicated unit within the Commonwealth Secretariat to strengthen national, regional, and global action on countering violent extremism. If extremists can recruit a young person with just 3 emails, we need to know how and why, so that we can recruit them with our message and inspire them to work instead towards our goals and our values. The new Commonwealth Countering Violent Extremism Unit will support our member states with devising and implementing their own national strategies or preventing radicalisation, and for strengthening their national human rights institutions and, just as importantly, the rule of law. The Commonwealth way is always to encourage positive engagement by promoting alternative narratives, strengthening justice institutions, and building platforms for real dialogue. Violence can be defeated, but we need the widest and the most inclusive alliances of government, international agencies, civil society organisations, private sector actors, legal bodies, educators, youth workers, and health professionals. We also need to mobilise faith leaders alongside those of no religious belief at all, and unite in upholding and expressing the values of our common humanity. And so I suppose that brings us to partnership and our Commonwealth flair for making connection at multiple levels, involving people from all walks of life and from all member states, and providing opportunities to them to work together in shaping a safer, more equitable world with inclusive economic growth and development in which all can share, really is critical to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as in measuring up to our shared Commonwealth values and principles. And a good example of this is the way the Commonwealth developed in doctrine, its doctrine of the separation of powers, generally known, or better known, I suppose, as the Latimer House Principles. This was originally proposed by a small, informal ginger group of experts within the Commonwealth professional organisations. Their ideas were taken up and developed more widely, including within the Commonwealth Secretariat. Ministerial buy-in then led to adoption by the Commonwealth heads of government. And I think this just shows how, when the most is made of the Commonwealth connection at multiple levels, and of our convening power, and of the goodwill and ease with which we can interact, it leads on to global impact. So globally, regionally, nationally, we see political, social, and economic change occurring at a very rapid pace. And by offering support to strengthen and stabilize national institutions, and by providing targeted and practical assistance to help all member states to reach the objectives they set themselves, the Commonwealth can be a steadying anchor in these turbulent times. Our sustained work together as a Commonwealth provides the basis for major global agreements, as we saw in September and in December 2015, when the consensus achieved by our heads of government was taken up by the wider international community. In plotting the direction of travel for the Commonwealth, our leaders provided a template for the Sustainable Development Goals, and our Commonwealth leaders' statement on climate change was the precursor to the COP21 Paris Agreement, so that we can capitalize on our shared inheritances of the common law, which forms the basis of international law, and of other aspects that combine to give us our Commonwealth advantage. And I have announced that we will be setting up a Commonwealth Office of Criminal and Civil Justice Reform. It will share templates for legislative reform and implementation of best practice to strengthen public safety and help show what has or has not worked in our Commonwealth jurisdictions. Each of our jurisdictions is different and has specific local needs and contexts, yet all share many similarities and deep connection between our people and the institutions which serve them. Partnerships with the judiciary, prosecutors, police, national human rights institutions, international agencies, and civil society organizations are all vital to this work. So in terms of value for money, benefit for our citizens, and improvement of business environment and efficiency, this is a distinctive contribution that I believe only the Commonwealth can make. Yet what we achieve in the Commonwealth can be applied more widely. And that is why the Tackling Corruption Together conference we organised at Commonwealth headquarters in May attracted such an unprecedented level of participation and interest from right across the world. It brought together government and business leaders, civil society organisations and the private sector to agree on practical steps that will expose and make a dent in corruption. Leaders spoke unequivocally of their determination to end impunity, root out corruption, empower victims, and support activists and whistleblowers. Such commitment is vital to the forming of a global coalition of goodwill and good practice to bolster transparency and good governance. And as I have already remarked, our 2016 theme is an inclusive Commonwealth. And inclusiveness comes from being interlinked, interdependent, interwoven, yet it's an unfinished fabric. And there are loose ends. And it is those loose ends, our acceptance of incompleteness and, on occasion, of inconsistency, that allow for creativity, adaptation, and innovation. By being able to tie on something new, we are able to grow and to develop. We are not a closed system, and we do not claim to be perfect or complete. But those untidy loose ends mean we always have an opportunity to knit in new threads, to add to the pattern, or to weave a new one. And I hope the examples I have given of how and why the Commonwealth member states choose to come together voluntarily in a spirit of trust and goodwill, and to act together for the common good, have served as something of an introduction to the work and mission of this precious shared inheritance, the Commonwealth of Nations. We must value it and cherish it, not as an heirloom, but as a matchless asset and great resource for strength and cooperation in this fragile world. It is up to all of us, Commonwealth citizens, governments and institutions of member states, in partnership with friends and neighbours in the wider international community, to understand its potential, to use it, and to make the most of its promise for a safer, more inclusive, and more sustainable future for all. Our future is greater than our past.